затова ще проведем разговора на английски. Благодаря ви за това, че ще го изслушате без превод. Заповядайте. Това ще го направи по-динамичен и по-лесен. Честит 1 април, честит ден на шегата. Надявам се, че сте се пошегували със себе си, ако не друго. Много дълго мислих защо трябва да имаме 1 април и специален ден на шегата и поне за себе си стигнах до извода, че явно имаме нужда да бъдем малко по-несериозни един ден в годината. Мисля, че нуждата да бъдем малко по-несериозни страхотно съвпада с днешната тема и с това, за което сме се събрали. Честит празник! Това е празника на един от големите музеи в България, Дома на хумора и сатирата. Един музей, който преживя тотална трансформация и стана истински модерен музей. Така че това е още едно страхотно съвпадение да се съберем днес тук на този ден. Аз се казвам Весела. През последните 15 години работя за това децата да имат повече смислени преживявания в музеи и в галерии. А през последните 6 месеца работих с изключителни възрастни. Трябва да ви кажа, че когато си работил 15 години с деца, изключителните възрастни не са толкова много. И съм много благодарна на всички хора, с които работих през последните 6 месеца. Това бяха екип от Департамент Археология на Нов Български университет, чийто ръководител, доцент Доманов е тук. Представители на Департамент Дизайн, доцент Попов е тук, на Департамент История, на Департамент Археология, експерти от български музеи, специалисти, практици, опитни практици от Съединените щати в сферата на изложбения дизайн. И заедно успяхме да създадем, смело мога да кажа, една страхотна програма. Една програма, която стартира още от този октомври. Програма, която се стреми да направи разбираемо образование за съвременните музейни експозиции, за съвременните музеи, за това какво трябва да представляват. Тя стартира от октомври, а записването в нея, здравейте, ще бъде възможно след май. Няма да мога да изборя тук всички, с които сме работили. Помня и мисля за всеки един от тях, но специално искам да извадя предстроя, да подчертая 4 души. И това са Ирена Димитрова, специалист в Департамент Археология. Тя винаги е съпорт. Доцент Доманов като ръководител на Департамент Археология. Доцент Постаджан, благодарим ви за цялата подкрепа. И Надя Захариева и Юлияна Дечева от фондация Америка за България. Те направиха това възможно и аз истински вярвам, че това е една революционна програма и че тя ще направи голяма промяна. Преди да започнем разговора, помолих доцент Постаджан и Надя да кажат наистина 2 думи. Техният принос е важен и бих искала да го отбележим, дори съвсем за кратичко. Доцент Постаджан.
Здравейте и от мен. Нов Български университет винаги много се радва, когато думата революционно и програма се използват в такова съчетание. Така че наистина изключително много вярваме, че това, което се създава последните месеци, предстоите първа да се развие, не просто ще бъде революционно, но в действителност ще пречупи призмата на всичко това, което се случва в музеите по един изключително динамичен начин. Видяхте само от броя на департаменти, че става въпрос за една изключително интердисциплинарна, динамична програма. Това, че в нея ще съчетаем както български, така и чуждестранни лектори, е също според мен нещо, което е чудесно, така че вярвам, че всеки един студент в тази програма ще успее изключително много да се потопи в всичко това, което музеите трябва да бъдат. Изключително много благодаря на Весела, на екипа на фондация Америка за България, Департамент Археология за това, че положиха усилия всички тези революционни неща да се случат и на практика и разбира се успех от мен. Нов Български университет ще подкрепя с всичко, което е необходимо тази програма, така че тя да стане популярна и в действителност да приобщи настоящи и бъдещи музейни специалисти в нея. Благодаря.
Благодаря ви. Аз без вас нямаше да е възможно. Надя?
Повечето от вас знаят, че фондация Америка за България от самото си създаване през 2009 година подпомага българското културно-историческо наследство. Не само строим нови музеи, като епископската базилика в Филипопол, искаме на историческите музеи да ремонтират съществуващи зали и да ги превърнат в експозиции на световно ниво, като залата на врачанските съкровища във Врачански исторически музей. Не само подкрепяме иновативни изложби, като тази за професор Марин Върбанов в Историческия музей в Оряхово, но също така за нас представлява много голям интерес да обучаваме експерти, които да могат да реализират всички тези проекти предстоящи. Правим Академия Муза два пъти в годината, в която вземат участие над 70 музейни и галерийни експерти, и сега с огромно удоволствие инициирахме и подкрепяме тази програма в Нов български университет. Благодаря на университета, благодаря на всички преподаватели, които взеха участие в съставяне на програмата, и се надявам към тази програма да има интерес. На добър час на тази лекция на нашите големи приятели от Америка, Пол Орсели и Кристина Ферверда.
Благодаря, Надя. Благодаря и за цялото участие и инициатива за тази програма. Тя е много необходима. Няма да представям Пол Орсели и Кристина Ферверда изрично. Мисля, че разговорът с тях ще бъде достатъчно представителен, но ще се опитам да кажа няколко важни неща за нещата, които те са направили, докато говорим. Тази среща стартира една серия от срещи, представяния, инициативи, които Департамент Археология и Нов български университет инициират във връзка с представяне на програмата, в които ще можем да видим експерти от български музеи, от европейски музеи, експерти от Съединените щати също като тях, за да си представим по-ясно на къде отиват музеите и как се променят. So, you understood everything?
Да, разбира се.
Пол и Кристина учат български?
Уча български.
Нали? So you know everything already. You know what we talked about. You maybe don't know what we talked about, Paul, but you first came to Bulgaria in, what was it, 2009? Your first...
2009?
2009. You're still as young as you were then.
Yeah, I guess.
And we then made an event in this very university in a different place. We were then making a project for the children's corners in museums. Then you came to work with Mosaico at 2013. And now you are a leading tutor in the Muse Academy, in which you work with museum professionals. So you've been in Bulgaria for quite some time.
This is the country, other than Canada, that I've been to the most. The world is strange and wonderful.
So you have a lot of observations here. What changed in museums? Let's not talk what changed in Bulgaria. That will be a difficult subject. But what changed in museums since you first came here? And what do you think are the strongest sides in museums here in this country?
So I think over time, and now forget about that, I've been also visiting Bulgaria since 2009. I've been working in museums now for over 42 years, right? So I think one thing that's changed over that time is giving more emphasis to visitors and giving more opportunity for visitors to participate in the roles of creating experiences at museums. I mean, traditionally, museums have been very top-down. Curators uber alles, you know? Everything comes from the curators, which is fine as long as the curators are thinking about the visitors and not just their fellow professionals. And so I think that's the biggest change, really, that I've seen all over the world. I mean, I've been fortunate to work in Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, and that's a tricky proposition for some museums.
Do you have an exhibit that you would strongly recommend in Bulgaria to people to visit? That's a tricky question.
Naturally, I'm biased since I worked on the Muzeico project, but of course I admire very much the Basilica project in Plovdiv. But I'll also give you an example from, maybe an unlikely example from right here in Sofia. The Natural History Museum in Sofia is in many ways a very traditional natural history museum. Many cases of many things, but in the gallery where they have exhibits about insects, they have cases and cases of insects, but adjacent to that collection of mounted insects, they have, I think it's a great exhibition where they used art and non-traditional ways to interpret information about insects. So if you get tired, even I as a biology person, after seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of insects with pins in them in beautiful white cases, right adjacent to that is a exhibition that really lets you think about insects in a very novel way. They incorporate art and interactive installations. So yeah, I think that's great. I mean, well,
yeah, that's good.
That's a good start.
You'll follow. That's a good start. And actually a good transition to art. Mm-hmm. Christina, you and Jamie, who is the third American tutor in the new program,
yes.
And also a very good friend of Bulgaria, although from recently, you've been crucial and pushing to introduce art and contemporary art perspective into this program. Why is that, first question? And second, you've seen quite some Bulgarian museums. Currently, they are really focused on subjects. They are historical museums or archaeological museums or biology museums or art museums. Do you think these things combine? Do you think these topics can intersect somehow?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think just to start, for those of you that I see many people in the audience who know Jamie, so I'm going to channel my inner Jamie at the moment. Just to say that I think contemporary art gives us an opportunity to really tell stories, but also highlight emotions. And I think there is absolutely an opportunity for contemporary art to do more than just elevate the artistic craft. It has the opportunity to really promote emotional responses to scientific or historical topics. So we had actually a fantastic example that comes from our students in the Muse Academy. There was a group of students who were really passionate about the history of bread and the tradition of bread making in Bulgaria. But they were able to find a contemporary artist who uses physical stones that look as if they are made out of bread and slicing them in such a way that they look like bread. But this was a way to kind of talk about the importance of bread as a cultural tradition and its connection to everybody's own personal culture. So whether you knew a lot about Bulgarian bread making traditions, you were able to kind of bring this into your own perspective. As well, it related to topics of war and famine. And so it was really powerful as an addition, not to replace the historical content, but to expand on the historical content. And I think this is something that's really exciting about the opportunity of mixing disciplines. So I often tell the story of my father, who is not a museum goer, right? He is not interested in going to an art museum. But if you can tell him, oh, this is an art museum about cranes and the way that mechanical objects work, or it's a history exhibit that includes elements of the science of cart making or cabinetry, he will immediately be curious and want to engage, right? So these are opportunities, and I think this is really my specialty when it comes to thinking about audiences. The people who say, nah, I'm not interested in that. Like, I'm not into science, that's not my thing. But if you can tell them, it's bugs, but it's really art, you should see it, that person is immediately going to be curious and want to follow that topic. So it's a way to kind of open the door for people who won't immediately reach out to this museum and really grow the opportunity for them to fall in love with the same topic that you're in love with.
That's a super example. I didn't know that bread can translate to art, really. Paul, I was thinking you have a really heavy profile and CV in working with museums, but from where I stand...
That's just a nice way of saying I'm old.
Not really. Not only 42 years, that's nothing. But from where I stand, your biggest experience is in working with Children's Museum.
Yeah.
And until recently, in the United States and still in Bulgaria, children's museums are not recognized as museums because they don't have artifacts collection. And artifacts are usually a challenge towards an interactive exhibit because artifacts in archaeology, sources in history are, of course, are very precious things. And I was wondering, to an extreme, do you think a good historic or archaeological exhibition is possible without artifacts at all? Not that we're going to make one, but do you think it's possible?
Well, actually, that's a super question. I mean, this idea, when most people think about museums, they think about the stuff. Oh, we have Roman gravestones, we have automobiles, we have, you know, whatever, Thracian gold mask. But a lot of those stories, a lot of the stuff is really useless, again, to a non-expert without a story. What does this mean to me? Why, like, the hardest question for an exhibit developer to answer is, who cares? You know, I'm a visitor and I come in, okay, here's this gold mask. Who cares? I mean, what does it have to do with me? Why should I be interested in this? And I think that's a really big challenge. I was lucky to just go to a new exhibition that opened in the United States at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. It was a story about what happened during World War II, how Denmark saved almost all their Jewish citizens. And it was a deep and accurate historical exhibition without artifacts. It was awesome. You should all go see it. I mean, it was incredible. They worked with a children's book artist. They intentionally wanted to make an exhibition about a hard subject, the Holocaust, Nazis, World War II, that families and children could appreciate. Already a difficult task, but now without any artifacts. So how do you create and tell the stories of real people documented in that way? They worked with an illustrator from Israel. They created huge, it was almost like walking through a book, a story. Here are some people who lived in Denmark, children, Baba, grandma, someone who was a tailor. They were real people. We knew their stories, but we had no artifacts. The artifacts were gone. They were destroyed. It was a great story. They had interactive devices. You could pick up a telephone, and of course a modern-day artist would talk to you using letters and documentation and tell you the story. How these people all escaped to neutral Sweden in fishing boats. I mean, there were things I learned about that story that were deeply meaningful to me. A deep, thoughtful experience about history with no artifacts. I mean, it's like, it sounds like a joke, a museum joke, but it was great. It was super. I mean, I'll just tell you one quick thing I learned, and then I'll shut up. The Nazis occupied Denmark during World War II, but the Danish people, I guess there's sort of echoes in Bulgaria. You didn't, well, anyway, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to tell you about Bulgarian history. The Nazis occupied Denmark, but the Danish people pushed back against the Nazis. Why did the Nazis allow the Danish people to push back against them when other places they occupied, they did not allow that? Well, because the Danish people were perfect Aryans. And so the Nazis thought, when we win the war, these are our brothers, these are our sisters, we don't want to aggravate them. So the king of Denmark was able to push, the Danish people were able to push against it. It's almost like they used the twisted thinking of the Nazis against them. Awesome story, very sophisticated story, but that came out in that exhibition as one example.
And just to connect a little bit to what you're saying, I think one thing that we've talked about as a team, Paul, Jamie, and I, and I think that also is an area of interest in a lot of our colleagues in Bulgaria that we've talked about with folks, is interpreting difficult histories. So what Paul is saying immediately makes me think of 3 spaces that are largely described as the legacy monuments, which is in Alabama, an area in the United States which has a long history of enslaving people of color. And in this case, there are potentially objects, but the organization that wanted to tell this story didn't have them. And so rather than trying to acquire them or potentially use an object that might be really painful for somebody whose family had experienced slavery, they went and worked with the community and actually created memorial objects that are contemporary. So rather than, I guess what I would say is, no artifacts doesn't necessarily mean no objects. It allows you to have an opportunity to kind of work with people who are invested in your organization to find things that are meaningful in the right ways for that audience. And so their project is amazing, and I think is starting a new opportunity for people in the United States to really think about that entire history and legacy with a new softness and opening to approach it in a different way.
Thank you for that example, both of you. But many people, archaeologists certainly, would say that an artifact that's real it's unprecedented, it's unique, you can't replace it with anything else. And the 3 of us, well, no, I'll not include you, but the two of us don't have really, we're not scientists.
Right.
And in the last 6 months while I've worked on the program, I've worked with exceptionally smart scientists, like the smartest of the smartest. And I came to see what I knew already, that I know very little, and they know so much. It didn't depress me, really, but they really do know so much. So what do you think a scientist's role should actually be in an exhibit development? In a Bulgarian museum, sometimes scientists have to do everything. The whole exhibit work, the whole academic work, especially in archaeological museums, people would do also the archaeological work, really a lot of stuff. What do you think a scientist, real smart person, should do in this process, really?
I really relish the opportunities, I think, like you, when I get to work with incredible scientists and incredible historians, incredible archaeologists. And I think that's often the mark of a project that will be incredible when it opens. They've dedicated their life to a craft, to a topic, and they know it in ways that nobody else does. I also, and I think people in our field, have dedicated their lives to a completely different craft, which is really knowing how to reach visitors and how to make the information accessible to visitors. So I see you laughing over there.
I'm shifting in my seat. I'm waiting for my turn.
So I think for me, the role of an expert is one that's just truly like hand in hand with people in our field. We are constantly reaching out to them to kind of be our North Star. So when we have a question, I'm using this interactive to sort of show this information. Is this the right interactive? And often what we're hearing is, yeah, that's close, but it needs to be more like this. It should turn, the motion shouldn't be turning, it should be more like a spiral going down, right? They're making sure that the experience that we create is really true to the intent of the scientific information.
And accurate.
Yes, and I think you're always looking for the moment where that scientist or the team that you're working with light up because they really believe in the story and the experience that you're creating. And that's when you kind of know, okay, this is really hitting the mark. And so, the opportunity to work with really incredible scientists, I think, is just part of building a good team.
You feel differently?
No, my background is in science and science
That's why
education.
I excluded you.
So of course, I like things about science, but I think in addition to the word team, there's another T word in English, and that's trust. I mean, I would never, ever argue with a historian about history or a paleontologist about dinosaurs or ancient lives or fossils. But in the same way that I pay them absolute respect in that regard, as Christina indicates, they are not exhibit specialists, and we are. And I think it's important that we come together to work and share and learn from each other's experiences and expertise. And so that just goes right back to, again, this historical precedent. And I'm just going to say that plays out not just here in Bulgaria, but certainly in the United States. Now this is where Paul takes a sledgehammer to the proceedings and says, the thing is, I go to some museums, including in Bulgaria, and I seriously wonder if the people in that museum care about visitors. When you go to a new restaurant or a shop that you've never been to before, you immediately know if you feel welcomed, if the people inside care about you and treat you with respect. By the same token, you know if you go into an environment where you don't feel respected, or where who wants to go to a museum with your friends or your family and leave because you are made to feel stupid? That is a bad experience. And there are museums all around the world that's your experience. I am left to conclude that those museums, including some museums in Bulgaria, don't care about the visitors. That is just, oof. Like, I see so much potential in every museum. Literally, every museum I go to, I see there are all these possibilities to tell amazing stories, to make people feel the power of a paleontological object, an archaeological object, a new art installation, an old piece of art. That's what museums are supposed to be about. Museums are not supposed to be about a special club for experts to impress each other.
Thank you. That's a very...
Thank you. And now
that's
you
a
can
very...
leave.
Now we can go. That's a very... No, that's really harsh statement to make, actually, because museums...
That's the only harsh... That I'm going to say, that's the worst statement I'm going to make the whole time here, but I feel very strongly about it.
You had one, yeah. You had one. We agreed on one.
That's right. That was it.
But
well,
on the other... Sorry.
Well, I was just going to add on that I think... if we look at that as an opportunity, you know, when Paul and I are here, we meet incredible professionals who, as soon as you engage with them, they have amazing stories to tell, like truly amazing stories to tell. But, you know, the role of an exhibit is to make that present even when that person is not there, right? So the opportunity that we're always capitalizing on is, hey, you all have incredible world-class stuff in your collections, and you all know incredible engaging stories. So let's figure out how to get that into the real-life experience so that even when you're not there, the visitor is still having that experience every single time.
Thank you, too. You made it a little less harsh.
Yeah.
But it is a harsh statement.
Beauty
and it is,
and the Beast.
It is a harsh statement because museums, what museum people have to do really is a lot of different, difficult, constant work, not only with objects, not only with exhibits. They have to deal with a myriad of other things. What would you say, Paul, what roles do they need to have? What roles do they need to fill in museums to make this exhibit actually speak to visitors? And I have to say, there are a lot of museums in Bulgaria, not only the Bishop's Basilica, which is a huge project, but the museum I started with in Gabrovo. A lot of museums do make this welcoming spirit for visitors happen in Bulgaria, in small towns, in places that are really non-justly less visited, so to say. What roles do you think, how can museums be supported in achieving this effect on a much larger scale in Bulgaria, and what's the difference in the US, if there is any?
I mean, I think there are common challenges all across the world. There are, you know, people are concerned about money and resources, but I have to say, during the, well, I will tell you a little story. So the very first time I came to Bulgaria in 2009, we met with a museum director, and my understanding of the purpose of our meeting was to try and come up with ideas for their museum. And so I would suggest, or my American colleagues would suggest an idea. It was translated. The director would say in Bulgarian, "This is not possible," and then it was told to me in English, "This is not possible." And so it went back and forth like that for 4 or 5 times. You already, I'm sure, have gotten an impression how that went over with me. And so at the risk of creating an international incident, I said, I literally stood up and I said, "Excuse me, I didn't come all the way from the United States for you to keep telling us what is not possible. Why don't we try talking about even one small thing that is possible?" I didn't know the word at that point. I didn't know mojalo. If I had, every time I wouldn't have even waited for the translation. I just would have said mojalo, or I would have said mojalo, mojalo. That was a very interesting experience, because after I said that and sat down, it was as if all the air was sucked out of the room. It got very quiet, and the staff of the director, they didn't even want to look at me or the director. They did this. And I could tell the director was angry, and she was looking for a way to contain herself, and instead of, I'm sure she was thinking in her head, you pig ignorant American buffoon, who are you to come here to Bulgaria and tell me what's what? But instead, I give her a lot of credit in this regard. She took a deep breath and said, well, let's have our American colleagues, let's talk about some things we could do. But then we did talk about things we could do. And so I'm not naive. After working and continuing to work for 42 years, I bump into people all around the world who, let's make something instead of just making excuses. I understand you need resources and money, of course. I understand you do this, but I really resist this like litany of excuse making. What's one small thing? Like I'm going to give you all a challenge right now, right? Never is any of our working situations perfect. But I'm going to challenge all of you to think of something before you go to sleep tonight. Maybe I'll visit you in your dreams, like Nicolas Cage in Dream Scenario. I hope not like that. But let's say, but Mojalo, what's one thing we can do? With the resources we have now, what's one thing that we can do? Come on. Don't kid a kidder. You have to be able to come up with at least one.
It's by coincidence that you've put your Godzilla shirt for the presentation.
Come on, like, you know, you don't want to like let those excuses beat you. You want to stomp on them like Godzilla through Tokyo. Come on.
You wanted to make a point to us all.
Well, I guess. I don't know. I'm just celebrating that they won at the Oscars for special effects.
Can we talk, Christina, can you say a few things that you find are strengths?
Sure.
You've been teaching in the Music Academy already 2 years?
2 years, 3 sessions.
2 years, 3 sessions. You've met more than 60 people, probably half of them were, right? Probably half of them are from Bulgarian museums of all different ages and of all different positions.
60.
Yes.
More than 60.
70.
More like
nearly
90.
100, yeah.
Okay. So you met a lot of people, really, from Bulgarian museums, all different ages. You probably were able to gain an impression what are the strong sides of these teams, of these museum teams, how they can be supported, like what can be done generally within the program on a general level to support this very difficult work in museums.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing I'll say is we've been able to meet some incredible people. And I think even the people who came in looking a little tough, like, what are you going to teach me about museums? I've been doing this for 50 years. Come on. I'll recognize Paul's great charm in that regard. We're able to kind of break down walls.
I actually can be charmed.
But I think they all come in with a clear vision of something that they want to change. They don't come in saying like, oh, we just want the same old, same old. So everybody that we've met kind of recognizes, hey, there's an opportunity here, we could be doing something better, and often have a pretty clear vision of what that opportunity is. So what we're offering is a lot of tools, right? a lot of ways to approach problems, to approach scenarios, and think about it with a mindset of try again, right? Often, I think there's a mindset of like, well, I don't know, I tried this thing and it didn't work out, right? I put something out there and it didn't work, so now I'm gonna kind of leave that opportunity. And what we're offering is like, here are ways to approach that in a lot of different facets. So I think both knowing what needs to change, but also really being passionate about the stories and the stuff that Bulgaria has to offer and wanting to share that with people is a humongous strength of everybody that we've met. We have probably experienced more in 3 weeks of offering the Muse Academy than most people experience in like 6 months of living in Bulgaria. We've been to the Bishop's Basilica, and we've been to see the house of, or the birthplace of Koli Fichito, and some additional houses of wealthy merchants there. We've sort of been able to see the vast incredible history of Bulgaria, and I think everybody that we've met is really passionate about sharing that. Even if it means like, take 5 minutes, we're gonna grab you and we're gonna go over and see something really quickly.
So passion.
Yeah.
Passion is a strong thing. Yeah, passion is a strong thing in Bulgaria. A people pleaser, as you have been, can you offer this group, and there are quite some people from museums watching us on the streaming, can you offer, apart from saying hi, can you offer a specific tool? One simple tool. Is there one simple tool that you can offer right now?
I think the thing that is underrated as a tool and technique is simply talking with your visitors or potential visitors. Even if you were working on a project or a museum building that wasn't open, you could go to your local biblioteca, you could go to a school, you could ask people questions at the mall. The thing is, again, who is this exhibition, this museum ultimately for? What do they already know? What do they want to know? What do you want them to leave knowing or feeling? The way to find that out is not to have this high-level experts blowhard meeting in a closed room. Well, I think people are going to do this, and I think people are going to do that. Why don't you actually ask people or give them a prototype and see what they actually do? And that is like really, it sounds simple, it's not, but it's, to me, essential. You can go see many projects that are like the wrecks by the side of the road. They spent lots of money on things that don't work, that people don't understand. And those things, in most cases, to my eyes, those problems could have been prevented. It's a lot easier to change something that you made with cardboard and tape than after you've already built the walls. So, that's it. It's not simple, but in a way it is simple, it gets overlooked.
I just want to connect what Paul is saying to both the idea that it doesn't have to be super formal. You can, if your audience is kids, you can get your friends' kids. If your audience is teenagers, you can potentially find them in a location where they hang out and ask them a few questions. And even that will give you information, whether it's simply changing one word in a label or remaking an entire prototype. But I would also connect that to working in teams, right? In your museums, you have people who know your content, who might be able to help you solve a problem. So if there are folks on your team that you feel might be amenable, asking them to try things out with you, looking at a problem from a different angle. So I think connecting with people that exhibitions do not, and for us either, it's not like we're struck by a bolt of lightning and then an exhibit just comes flowing out, right? We work with each other and lots of other people in order to make the best experience. And so I think that's really the best tool we have to offer.
I mean,
super.
in that spirit, not to take over the interview here, but I don't know if we have time, if there people in the audience have questions.
That's what I was going to say, that I would really want to leave a little bit of time for a question from the audience. Unfortunately, we can't take from the people who watch us, but we can take from the audience. But one last question before that. What do you think, let's start with Christina, what do you think is your absolutely very strong side that you're bringing to this program? What will you leave to your students?
I mean, I think the strongest thing is that reaching out to the people who don't think that this is for them, right? I am absolutely convinced that everybody could be interested in the museum, even if they think they're not. And so finding a way, finding an opportunity to kind of, even if it's not, hey, this is the best art exhibit and you love art, right? This is an amazing art exhibit, but you love socks. I will find a way to make it interesting, trust me. So, and I can teach you how to do that too.
Chorapi socks.
You're getting better.
I'm trying. I'm just like when you watch a little kid and they point at things.
That's where we're at.
That's sort of the stage I'm at with my Bulgarian learning.
But it's
journey.
getting better. Still, it's not your strong side in the program. What's your strong side in the program, you think?
Oh, thank you.
Yet.
I know.
Yet.
I told somebody I was working with a tutor, a lovely woman in Sofia. We both coincidentally found the same tutor, independent of each other, and we think she's great. Hi, Biljana, if you're watching.
Strasti Biljana, if you're watching.
But somebody said, oh, you're studying Bulgarian, and then you're going to be working on this master's project. You're not expecting to lecture in Bulgarian, are you? And I said, just what you said, not yet. Got to have a dream to have a dream come true. What's my...
But sorry to put this in, but it's very important for us to say that even though you can't yet lecture in Bulgarian, we will provide for a translation which will be more than translation, and that people who actually prefer to listen in Bulgarian or only listen to Bulgarian will be able to do this.
You may have to pay the interpreters working on my stuff a little extra, but oh well. I think it's no coincidence that my title for my company, my company is called Paul Orselli Workshop, and my title on my business card is Chief Instigator, like professional troublemaker. So my role, like for this program, and honestly for my work, I want to push on people, not strictly to be just annoying, but to think that if we immediately seem satisfied with our ideas, I don't think we're pushing ourselves enough. If I come to a museum, I want to tinker all the time. How can we make this even better, even greater? And so, I mean, it's paradoxical, right? Like, oh, this is great. Come, and Paul's going to push on you, So, what's push?
What would be this push for that?
The verb, like to push. Yeah, like if I push the button or something.
Побутна.
Whoa. Okay.
Super.
In the course of time, we will also present other professors in the program, but here we now have Dr. Atanasov and Docent Popov, and I saw somebody also. Margie, no, I saw Margie.
Back there.
Margie, I saw Margie.
Margie's gonna be
Yeah, Doruska. If I'm missing somebody, it's not intentionally. I'm just, my glasses are not here. But they have also amazing strong sides, which
Awesome.
you can discover, and we are happy to have them today with us and in the program in general. I hope you'll discover their strong sides little by little along the run. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a little bit of time to take a few questions from the audience. So if you have questions for Paul or Christina, we would be happy to take them.
Do you know that...
You will just need to use this.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Gary. Do you know about the scheme in the Bulgarian schools to introduce STEM centers? More than 2,000 schools will have STEM centers.
Awesome.
As that comes and the training for the teachers comes, one of the things that we're working on also is identifying in the museums those people that will interface with them. Because if it can mirror the methodology, for instance, in the schools, and some of the content through the exhibits, then that's going to be another magnet and conduit to take people into the museums. So these two things come very, very well timed.
Yes.
The changes in museums and education.
I mean, it's interesting. You can think about this engagement between so-called formal education and informal education in museums. I mean, really, we want to build up an ecosystem of resources and opportunities for people to take advantage of, to learn about science in school, to learn about science in nature, to learn about science in museums,
To learn about
all those
science
subjects.
in history or in art making.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Super, thank you. Docent Domanov is the other teacher who I also sometimes forget because he also has strong sides on the pushing part. Other questions?
Do you see a parallel between
You have to speak here so that
Do you see a parallel in between there's a lot of drive at the moment in Bulgaria and has been for some time. I've been here since 2004, so I've got some history here. Between the drive towards, for instance, internet and the people who make the sites, and the UX and UI, so the user interfaces and the user experience. An awful lot of people who are involved in that for the internet side would be very good people to bring into the museum side also,
Totally. The spirit of prototyping and ensuring that people understand, well, what am I supposed to do here? Right. Is a natural fit. And I think actually there was a period of time when I described what I do, because believe it or not, exhibit developer is not a hugely popular profession in the United States. Kids you don't go around the kindergarten classroom and people say, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a teacher, and then you're like, I want to be an exhibit developer.
This doesn't happen often?
No.
I can't believe it.
I did. No, I mean, I want to work in a museum. They're like, oh, this kid's a real...
But I described my work as UX in real life. So I'm figuring out how are you going to use this experience to better yourself, to understand your life, to understand who you are and who everybody else is. So it is a great parallel.
You want to say something?
I always want.
Sure.
Please.
Paul and Christina, if you are to use one or two sentences like an advertisement for the program, for the people who watch us and are potential students, what would your advertising be? I'm not asking you to prototype at the moment, just say it.
We're gonna have fun. It will be hard work, but I'm gonna riff off one of Paul's mottos that I think we all believe in. Dream big, so modulo, it's possible. Get things done. We're gonna work hard, but we are gonna make sure that it's fun, that you are engaged, and that you're, enjoying as well as working.
It's super funny that you picked the fun thing. Although I'll just brag on Christina. She just wrote a new museum book just came out, and Christina and one of our other colleagues, Helen Divyak, she wrote a whole chapter about fun in museums. I'm actually going to give, ironically, a serious answer for Paul Orselli, which is change people's lives through museums. Because I really think that is possible. There are experiences I've had at museums that I think have changed my life. And that's an awesome opportunity and an awesome responsibility.
That might be the best opportunity that we have to change lives. Huh?
Well,
we'll take one last question. Can we just see if there is, okay, you want to add something?
I just wanted, if you've had a life-changing experience in a museum and you're in the audience or you're at home, just think about it now. But if you're in the audience, can you raise your hand? Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to know why each of you does this work. And I think Paul just gave his answer, which is he's in it to change people's lives. I don't know if, Christina, you'd have a different reason why you're in this work.
I mean, I think it is ultimately boils down to the same thing, but I did not grow up going to museums. I grew up in the woods with somebody who was a maker, so I learned how to make lots of things. But I think the first experience that I had in a museum was immediately transformative. And I think I wanted to, it helped me understand who I am, and I wanted to offer that to other people. So I think just as a concrete example of maybe what Paul is offering, it completely changed who I am as a person, and I think helped me really clearly understand myself. And so offering that to others is exactly what I wanted to do.
Thank you, Paul. Christina?
Wait!
Of course not. I just wanted to say thank you, all of you. I'll leave Paul to one final of his gadget things for you to make the time feel worth it.
This is, yeah, I mean, we need to end, you know, to give you something memorable, and it's, I like that you brought up STEM and STEAM, and this is like the kind of thing that I would do when I was a kid, and the kind of thing I continue to do as an adult. So I have a little Alka-Seltzer tablet here. It's not because...
Yeah, we should...
Should I move back?
Yeah, it's up to you. And I have a little container and a tube, so I'm going to pour some water in the little container with the Alka-Seltzer and then close it up. And we're going to see the power of Alka-Seltzer tablets. Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Try not to hit one of the lights. Oh!
Went super high.
Come, we want to talk to you and hear what you're doing.
Thank you to all of you. We'll stay 5 or 10 minutes more so that you can talk to Paul and Christina if you want to, and we'd love you to. And we'd love people who have been watching us, thank you for that, to send us comments. The Department of Archaeology...
I can't wait for that part.
The Department of Archaeology in New Bulgarian University will be running this program, so if there's anything you want to send, you can send to us. And we'll meet again. We have events planned with the other professors and we other museum experts in Bulgaria further in the year, so we'll meet again. Да, ще пусна просто, за да го сетнем. Thank you. Talk to Paul and Christina.
Yeah.
Take this out so that people don't.